Come on, you don't want to hear all the horny details. Are you okay? Are you?
Grease is loved for its song and dance numbers, but this classic also has a lot of insights into another kind of performance: how we present our gender and sexuality to the world. Grease shows that learning this gender performance is a big part of our teen years.
I don't know about these chicks.
Yeah, they're only good for one thing.
Then what are you supposed to do with them for the other 23 hours and 45 minutes of the day?
But performance isn't inherently negative or positive. It can mean hiding behind an inauthentic, false persona, or it can mean expressing your true self to the world.
And to look your best for the big contest, just be yourselves and have a ball. That's what it's all about, after all.
40 years later, Grease still has something to show us about finding a healthy approach to gender and sexuality that's true to who we are.
She looks too pure to be pink.
Grease is set in the 50s, but it came out in 1978, so the movie is actually telling us more about the 70s.
We made out under the dark.
This was a time of sexual revolution, defined by the women's liberation movement, the accessibility of the pill, the rise of porn, and increasing visibility for LGBTQ people. Grease may be nostalgic for 50s pop culture, style, and the decade's idealistic feel-good tone, but the film is trying to imagine a more honest, edgy depiction of what the era was really like, to show the parts that might have been left out by movies or shows actually made in the 50s.
How wonderful to see you.
Did you have a nice date, Dave?
I feel like a defective typewriter. Huh? I skipped a period.
You think you're peachy?
In Grease, the sexual revolution is reflected especially in two ways. One, in the affirmation of overt sexuality, and two, in complex gender representations. Grease reinterprets the 50s through a sex-positive lens, affirming the idea that sex can be a means for self-expression.
And I'm losing control, 'cause the power you're supplying, it's electrifying.
The movie brutally mocks the virginal Sandra Dee type.
This goody two-shoes makes me want to barf.
Flavor Wire has argued that, quote, in a slut-shaming world, it's a rare and interesting example of prude shaming.
What's wrong? We don't got cooties.
And ultimately, the movie's happy ending is that Sandy transforms into a confident woman with sexual agency.
Meditate my direction. Feel your way.
Meanwhile, the other way Grease is updating the 50s is by giving us a more complex representation of gender through the Pink Ladies and the T-Birds.
Lady? I don't see a lady.
The name, the Pink Ladies, tells us that these girls are firmly grounded in their femininity.
One of my diamonds just fell in the macaroni.
They're interested in beautifying and boys.
Men are rats. Listen to me. They're fleas on rats. Worse than that. They're amoebas on fleas on rats.
But at the same time, they don't fit other female stereotypes. They're not interested in things like homemaking or kids. They're not trying to be demure, and Rizzo in particular is sexually liberated and assertive.
Oh, bite the weenie, Riz.
With relish.
Meanwhile, the T-Birds are superficially masculine in that they're obsessed with cars and getting laid.
Tell me more, did you get very far?
But they also don't fit the macho profile in some ways. They're not into sports, and they spend a lot of time doing their hair. The title Grease is referring to the hair grease the guys use. And the film shows them touching up their hair an absurd number of times. These young men are vainer than the girls. Danny and Kanicki put up a tough front.
You know, if you fix up this car, it could be Makeout City, you know that?
Right, the chick is gonna have to put out before she even gets in.
But they're actually sensitive guys underneath.
Hey, Danny, we've been friends a long time, right?
Yeah. So?
Well, I thought that you could maybe be my second at Thunder Road.
And they're more naive and vulnerable than they act.
Sandy, my darling, you hurt me real bad. You know it's true.
The movie implies Kenickie was a virgin when Rizzo and Kenickie first get together, since he's been carrying a condom around for years.
It broke.
How could it break?
I bought it when I was in the 7th grade.
So both the Pink Ladies and the T-Birds embody a mix of traditionally masculine and feminine qualities. These characters' styles also have cultural and historical significance. Director Randall Kleiser confirmed that Danny's persona takes after Elvis.
Kind of the 50s James Dean or Elvis Presley look. More Elvis Presley. I think he was channeling Elvis Presley in this movie because the hair, as you can see, is very much an Elvis thing, Elvis sideburns.
Elvis embodied a far more expressive sexuality than the sex symbols before him.
Elvis! Elvis! Let me be! Keep that pelvis far from me!
Stars like Elvis, James Dean, and Paul Newman represented a new kind of masculinity, one that embraced a youthful, rebellious spirit.
He's real abstract. He's different.
That's right. That's right. I'm cute, too.
Compared to earlier masculine icons who were more about debonair grace or ruggedness. Meanwhile, Sandy's reference points are very explicitly Sandra Dee, and Doris Day.
Hey, I'm Doris Day. I was not brought up that way.
You might say that these women represented a past, fading version of womanhood.
Which brings us back to the subject of boys. What do you think about kissing Annie?
Whereas Elvis represented something new and of the future.
Whole lot of loving to do, come on, baby. To make it fun, it takes two.
So through Danny and Sandy, Grease is dramatizing this clash between new and old approaches to sexuality.
Daddy, don't spoil it.
It's not spoiling it, Sandy. It's only making it better.
And in the end, it's the new that wins out.
Need a man who can keep me satisfied.
Adolescence is when we begin to perform gender in an adult way. Teens emerge from puberty with adult bodies, and they can start to experiment with expressing themselves sexually.
Hickey from Kenickie's like a Hallmark card. You care enough to send the very best.
This is especially overt in the movie, which cast actors in their 20s and 30s to play high schoolers.
Grow up, he's the living end.
Yeah, if you like older guys.
It's fitting that performance is at the heart of this teen movie. Adolescents tend to feel like they're on stage and everyone's watching.
Jan, that is so adolescent. We are adolescent.
Much of the movie illustrates the pressure teens feel to perform false personas to fit in. Like when Danny plays it cool upon seeing Sandy again at school after their summer together.
What's the matter with me, baby? What's the matter with you?
You're a fake and a phony, and I wish I'd never laid eyes on you.
Especially as teens, we fixate on ideas of what we think others want from us.
But to cry in front of you, that's the worst thing I could do.
When Danny's trying to win Sandy back, he gets into sports to impress her. But she doesn't seem to really care whether he's a jock or not. Likewise, he doesn't really mind that she's a good girl. After all, that's who she was when he fell for her. But he very much cares what his friends think of her.
Hey, Danny, what's up? You still think about that chick?
What are you, nuts?
Once he stops worrying about his friends,
Can't believe it. Danny Zuko turned jock?
That's right, it did.
he's finally able to get the happiness with Sandy he wants. So Grease is underlining that classic teen movie message that we shouldn't trouble ourselves with what other people think. In the very beginning of the film, we see Sandy and Danny frolicking on the beach together, and they're completely happy just being themselves with each other. In spite of the instinct to protect yourself with a persona, the greatest happiness comes from being seen for who you really are.
Could you call me by my first name? Betty.
But at the same time, Grease isn't saying performing an identity is inherently bad. Frenchie is a positive example of how you can explore and find yourself through performance. She has a lot of fun playing with her appearance.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had a little trouble in tinting class.
And that's not for anyone else's benefit.
Well, I do have more fun.
So performance can be authentic self-expression, or it can be a fake way to seek approval, depending on where it's coming from. The teens in Greece are learning how to perform being adult men and women, and sometimes they overreach by trying to pretend they're more adult than they truly feel.
Oh, I can take care of myself. And anybody else who comes along.
But in the end of the film, Sandy and Danny both learn to perform their genders in a positive way that expresses emotional maturity. Sandy's makeover from good girl to sexy bombshell can get criticized these days.
Sandy?
Tell me about it, stud.
Some see this as a woman changing herself to please a guy, but Sandy's change is really about her. She's developing her adult sexuality and daring to show that side of herself to the world. Before this point, Sandy was repressed and afraid of the womanly sexual part of herself.
You think I'm gonna stay here with you in this sin wagon?
So finding the nerve to let this out is an important coming-of-age rite of passage.
One of the things that we came up with was the idea that she would be smoking and dropped a cigarette and put it out, and she was being told by Dinah Manoff to do that. And that was something we came up on the day, just to show that these girls are helping her become a pink lady and be sexy.
Sandy's more experienced friends are teaching her how to act like an adult woman in the world.
Let me teach you how to French inhale. It's really cool. Watch.
So here the movie reminds us that this behavior is learned from our community and shared. Thus, Sandy's transformation is showing the kind of gender performance that can be an affirmative ritual. And it's also important to remember what comes soon before this. Before her change, Danny comes into his manhood in a positive way. Danny takes Kanicki's place in the car race and wins. So unlike earlier when he was trying to impress Sandy and ended up embarrassing himself, here she gets to see him succeed and prove his masculinity. Seeing this, Sandy feels the desire to perform her femininity in the same way. She has a strong desire to shed her girlish Sandra Dee self. So by the end of Grease, Danny and Sandy have both grown up and grown into gendered roles that they both desire to perform. Danny's finally stopped caring what his friends think and is willing to put Sandy first.
Oh, come on, guys. You know you mean a lot to me. It's just that Sandy does too, and I'm gonna do anything I can to get her, that's it.
So he shows a deeper understanding of what it means to be a mature man, as opposed to a cool-looking but very self-conscious boy. Sandy outgrows her identity as the rigid girl afraid of experience,
So scared and unsure.
and starts opening up to a more adult relationship with Danny. The two characters meet each other halfway, not by pretending to be people they're not, but by leaning into a different side or performance of their identities. For both, this is expressed in a physical transformation. Sandy wears a black leather outfit, while Danny wears a Letterman sweater, as if each has become a little more the other. Overall, Grease offers a surprisingly complex look at how adolescents learn key lessons about performing gender, like how to distinguish between false and authentic performance, how to tell if you're changing yourself for other people versus when your outer self is evolving due to inner growth. The movie's ultimate takeaway is that learning to perform yourself in a way that rings true is essential to growing up.
Well, the first thing we have to do is you have to change.
Well, I know that's why I'm here, you know, to change.
No, I mean your clothes.
Oh.
Hi guys, Susanna and Deborah here. If you like what we do and you want to help us grow, one of the best things you can do is support us on Patreon.
We make special polls for our patrons where you can vote for a video you want us to make.
And right now we're giving away 3 free months of Mubi, a really fantastic movie streaming service.
Love Mubi.
We're such fans.
Awesome.
And we're giving that away to a limited number of patrons, so be one of the first to go check it out.
The link is right here.
Right here.